Welcome to this demonstration of how vendor statements can be automatically reconciled within SAP. If you currently use SAP but are performing manual or Excel vendor reconciliations or reconciling in any way outside of SAP, this brief video shows how it can easily be automated directly in SAP. For more information, please see the website www.bestsapcbi.com. Here is the agenda of what will be shown in the short video. We will start with a quick slideshow, as diving straight into the technical SAP screens may be a little confusing at first. We can then demonstrate very briefly how to load a vendor statement into SAP and show the resulting reconciliation reporting. This only introduces the product functionality. Of course, please see the website for further details or contact us for an in-depth demonstration. What is best vendor reconciliations? If you're watching this video, you're aware that SAP as initially delivered does not have functionality to process vendor statements. There is no menu item to click on for vendor statements or reconciliations. However, businesses that run SAP are generally large businesses that have a large vendor function. It is required to identify invoices that the vendor has sent out but that are not in the SAP system, or to identify credits that you have passed that you wish the vendor to pass, or payments that the vendor has not allocated correctly, or queries over discounts, etc., etc. Without SAP functionality to perform these vendor statement reconciliations, one is forced to process outside of SAP and match the statement manually or in Excel, for example. Hence, the need for BEST, which is a SAP add-on module to process vendor statements directly in SAP. There are many benefits such as reduction of personnel time, improved accuracy, improved audit trails, and improved reporting. However, simply put, the benefit is automated processing in SAP over manual processing outside of SAP. The best add-on module is SAP certified. SAP realizes that there are certain functional gaps within the generic SAP product, and therefore fosters an ecosystem of SAP certified products to fill these gaps. To ensure that the products are of the high standard that SAP requires, SAP reviews these products and awards SAP certification. The add-on module is built in SAP for SAP, which means it is entirely within SAP and looks like the rest of SAP. You do not require extra hardware, and users will merely be given new transactions. Here is a single slide showing how vendor statements are reconciled once the BEST add-on module is used. We start at the bottom of the slide with the vendors icon. The vendors will send us statements. The product accommodates any format of statement. Consider some statement formats in the rectangle on the left-hand side of the slide, starting at the top. If your vendor sends invoices to you electronically or via EDI, statements can also be sent directly into SAP in the same way. Depending on your business and situation, you may always have vendors that send you paper statements, and these can be loaded in a fast way into SAP. If you have a vendor portal, statements could be loaded via this portal, or the BEST Cloud portal could be used. Email is a very common form of receiving statements. In the first instance, the statement could be emailed to the clerk responsible for the account. The clerk will then load the attached statement electronically into SAP. In the second instance, you could set up an email address that is not monitored by a human. Rather, BEST will check for emails in this inbox and automatically load the statement sent to it. Currently, there are lots of vendor invoice automation tools on the market that automate the loading of vendor invoices into SAP. Some of these are Kofax, ReadSoft, OpenText. There are many of them. These tools can also be used to load the vendor statements into SAP. Whatever format the statement is sent in, it will be loaded into SAP. We now move to the circle on the right-hand side of the page. As soon as the statement is loaded into SAP, it will be automatically matched to the items in SAP. This includes SAP vendor items, whether open or cleared. If the product cannot match the statement line to a SAP vendor item, it will go further up the procurement chain in SAP to find a match. If you use held or parked documents, these can be matched. Or if there's an item in the GRR account that has been goods received, but the invoice has not been posted, this can be matched. Or if you, for example, collect rebates using a customer account, these will also be matched. Moving with the circular flow, the reconciliation report is then immediately available at the press of a button. You can run this for a single vendor or for multiple vendors. For example, you could run the reconciliation report for an entire company. You may then decide to restrict this to view the statement invoices that have not been received or matched in your SAP system. Subtotaling by vendor will then show vendors where there is a problem. Vice versa, you can identify for the entire company credit notes that you have posted that the supplier has not yet awarded. Moving to the block that says approve. If you approve your supplier reconciliations by printing and signing, you can now save these printing costs and approve the reconciliation directly in SAP. This also has a proper audit trail in SAP of the user, date and time when a reconciliation was approved or reflected. You can configure as many approval levels as you need. Moving to the last block titled Pay, there's an optional configuration option for businesses that have a policy where the invoice is only paid if it is matched to the statement. Rather than having to rely on the clerk to manually block such unmatched invoices and exclude them from the payment run, the BEST module will now automatically exclude these. The product is well established, and you are welcome to request contact details of our reference sites. Here are some case studies. Some of the businesses using the add-on module have conducted case studies to determine the time savings achieved from the product. These can be very substantial and result in either a much reduced personnel headcount or a change in personnel duties from manual matching and balancing to rather being more productive and resolving queries on the vendor account. Well done, you've made it through the slideshow. Let's now move into SAP. Recognize that as the SAP screen, the SAP main menu. Once you install the BEST add-on module, new transactions will be available to you. For example, here is an example menu of transactions that a clerk would be allocated to load statements, review the recon report, process exceptions, and approve recons. We will now go into the full BEST menu. This is all the new transactions that super users, for example, would have. On this screen, we have a number of transactions for processing and reporting reconciliations. We won't go into them in detail now. Here is a second tab for maintaining master data settings, and a third tab for the configuration options. Just like the rest of SAP, the functionality is configurable. So you configure in the development environment and transport it to the other environments like quality and production. For each different client, there are settings that need to be made for company code, document type, number of approvals, etc. Let's go back to the main processing screen. And we will now show one of the ways to load a statement into the system. You will recall from the slideshow that there are multiple ways and formats that the vendor can send statements, and BEST will cater for these. Let's assume, for example, that the vendor has sent us an Excel spreadsheet. This spreadsheet, as you can see, has 5 columns, namely the type of transaction, the vendor, the date of the transaction, the supplier document, as in the invoice number, payment document, etc., the value of the transaction, a second reference, which could be the PO number or the claim number. We can have additional columns if required, for example the profit center or branch, or the delivery note number, etc. Each vendor could send you a different layout. Let's now load the statement into SAP, this very spreadsheet. As with other vendor transactions in SAP, we enter the company code and the vendor. We also need to specify the statement date. Note that you can have statements for different currencies. You can also have multiple statements for a single vendor or company, or vice versa, combine multiple vendors and companies into a single reconciliation. Now you see a split screen. The right-hand side, titled Unmatched SAP Creditor Documents, is exactly what it says. These are the SAP documents that are not yet matched to a statement. They comprise invoices. Let's drill down to one and have a look. There you see you're nicely in SAP, and that's a standard SAP invoice. If there are other documents, such as held or parked, they will also appear here, ready for matching. We can drill down to those. You'll see that's a parked document. Or for example, GRs, goods receipts not yet invoiced. On the left hand side is where the new statement must be loaded. Let's load the Excel spreadsheet. Now, the SAP items that are matched have been removed from the right hand side. Those remaining are the unmatched ones. The entire statement has been loaded to the left hand side. Items matched have a green tick. Items unmatched have a red cross. These items with the yellow icons are items that are matched to held, parked or GRIR. We can now complete the loading of the statement by entering the closing balance and loading. Remember that this is just one format that the statements could be sent in. Please, of course, you're welcome to contact us to discuss other formats and for a detailed demonstration of them. Let's now look at the statement reconciliation report. As soon as the statement is loaded, we can view this report. There are a few ways to view, and I'm going to show you first the online reconciliation report. See how the reconciliation report balances the statement balance at the top to the vendor balance at the bottom. In between are the reconciling items. This is just one example of a reconciliation report. You could balance to the payment rather, for example, or both the vendor balance and the payment. Also, the reconciliation categories are completely customizable. The categories shown here are just typical example categories. See how the reconciling items are either colored blue for statement lines or yellow for AP or SAP lines. See how some of the statement invoices, these blue lines here, have a yellow icon and are matched to SAP lines. If I drill down to this one, I'll see that it's matched to a park document. Many companies wish to send the reconciliation report to the supplier, and this can be automatically triggered. In this case, a differently formatted reconciliation, for example in PDF like the one you see before you, can be produced and emailed. This is one that a reference site of ours produces. Obviously you can have your own specific layout, formatting, logo, etc. You'll see that this is a summary page, and it balances the statement balance to the vendor balance with category totals. Subsequent pages show the details that make up each category. Here's another example of a different customer. This one has more reconciliation categories. Also, instead of balancing to the vendor balance, it balances to the payment. Let's now look at all the recons in our test system. So what we're looking for here is a single report as an example to show you how we can start gleaning management data from the system. Here we've subtotaled the values and number of items, the values under amount, the number of items under count, by vendor and recon category. We can drill down to the line items in each category. Let's take another example. Here we show the categories as column headers, and you can see the total per category per vendor, and of course the total of the category across the entire company. Now the final example of this report We want to look at all statement invoices that haven't matched to anything in SAP. They're subtotaled by vendor. You can also see here we've aged them. Let's go and have a look at the standard SAP transaction to display vendor line items. It's used by a lot of SAP users. Your organization may have a different layout in terms of the fields that display or the order of the fields, but you should recognize this transaction. What is new is you can see these columns here for statement matched, statement reconciled, and the matching document number. So for every single creditor line item, you can immediately see on this well-used transaction whether or not it's matched or reconciled to the statement, and of course the unique matching document identifier that best uses for each match. We've tried to keep the video short so that only some basic transactions have been showed. Please contact us if you need to see further information, such as alternative loading mechanisms, online reconciliation approval, how to go completely paperless and store the original image in SAP, reviewing missing statements and processing status across all the vendors, lots of other management reports, how to prevent payment of unmatched invoices, business case, benefits, the project implementation lifecycle, and pricing. The best way to contact us if you don't have our information already is via the website that you see in front of you there. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope this short video was useful to you. Goodbye and happy reconciling.